The Hookman. Written and narrated by Dagonhills. The darkness of the late night hour made driving slow and deliberate as the car made its way up the narrow winding road that led to Temptation Point atop the hills. It was a Saturday night, and romance was in the air. Larry and Jenny had been out for an evening of dinner and a movie, and they had decided to drive up to the point to watch the glimmering city lights in the distance before their evening was over. Being young and in love, they were fearless of a dark, moonless night. Besides, the point was isolated enough that at this time of night, people other than similar lovebirds were scarce. As they finally reached the parking area, they hardly noticed that they were the only ones there that night. Larry parked the car at the best vantage point in order to see the view, though all he could really see was the beautiful girl sitting next to him. The sudden silence when he turned off the car was soon interrupted by the soft sound of the car radio playing a well-known melody. The lights of the distant city shone like jewels beneath the blanket of clouds far overhead that obscured the night sky. As the lovers sat in the dark, the only light was coming from the radio. Suddenly, the music was interrupted by a voice coming over the airwaves.
Attention, attention. Sorry to interrupt the broadcast. This is a special announcement by the emergency warning system. As of 4 hours ago, a patient from Morning View Sanitarium has been reported as on the loose, having escaped from the security wing of the hospital. He was committed there last year after the murder of several strangers. He is described as a heavy-set man in his late 50s, bald head, and walks with a slight limp. His most notable feature is the use of a prosthetic hand in the shape of a hook. He may be wearing his hospital attire, though this is unsure. This man is to be considered extremely dangerous, and no attempt to apprehend him is advised. If he is seen, please contact your local police department immediately. I repeat, this man is extremely dangerous. Do not attempt to make contact with him. We now return you to your local programming.
Just as the music began again, Jenny quickly turned the radio off. Larry, that hospital isn't all that far from where we are now. Maybe we should head back home. Jenny, I'm sure that they have every available man out looking for him, especially if he is a dangerous, crazed man. Can we please just go? I'm a little scared. If you insist, Jenny, but what are the chances he would come to a deserted place like this? I'm sure he is trying to get far away from this area. Let's just go, please. Okay, but first I need to check that back tire. It's been losing air for the last couple of days. Okay, but please hurry. It's so dark out here. Larry got out to check the tire. Jenny could hear him at the back talking to himself, then opening the trunk and moving things around. The shapes in the darkness all took on sinister appearances, and Jenny's imagination started to play tricks on her. The movement of a branch made her head dart to the right. The dark whoosh of an owl landing in a nearby tree made her strain her eyes even harder. All the while, the noises from the rear of the car kept startling her. She then heard a thump as if something hit the ground. Her mind whirled, wound up by fear. She actually let out a little sound when Larry tapped on her window. "I'm going to have to put the spare tire on. The pressure's too low." "Oh, Larry, please, let's go. We can drive to a service station." "We can't risk driving on that tire on these winding, narrow roads, Jenny. It'll only take a few minutes." Jenny heard his footsteps on the gravel walking to the back of the car. As she sat there, a feeling overcame her, an overwhelming feeling of someone watching her. The darkness seemed to wrap around her. The only thing she could see were indistinguishable shapes, mostly just her imagination, but some caused by the diffused rays from Larry's flashlight at the back of the car. Sitting there in the dark, illuminated by only the faint glow of the dashboard, Jenny felt a shiver go down her spine. She could feel eyes on her, as if someone was watching, waiting. She strained her ears for any sound, and her eyes did their best to look for any movements, but the night was pitch black. She couldn't see Larry as the trunk door was raised, but she could see the light from the flashlight. It suddenly became so quiet, so still. Larry must have taken a break for a moment. Jenny called out to him, "Larry, are you almost done? Please, I really want to leave." There was no reply, not one sound other than the night wind. "Larry, please, stop fooling around. I'm scared." Again, no reply. But now she heard a faint sound at the back of the car, a sound like metal, slowly scraping against metal. "Larry, please." The noise continued, seeming to be coming closer. A slow, steady scraping, as of steel. Jenny's heart seemed to skip a beat when she heard the slow footsteps on the gravel just outside the car window. They were approaching, slowly, step by step. "All done, Jenny." It was Larry, and Jenny could barely speak. "Can we please go now? I thought I heard something. Where were you?" "I had to use the restroom. The tire is done. Just let me put the jack away and close the trunk. It won't take a second." "Hurry, Larry, please." As soon as she said this, out of the corner of her eye she glimpsed movement in front of the car, and to her horror, she thought that she could barely make out the shape of a large man standing in the darkness, holding something. A black silhouette framed against the distant glow of the city. Was it Larry, holding the tire iron? No, she could hear Larry at the back of the car. She gasped in terror as she strained her eyes to see what was in his hand, and let out an audible shriek when she realized what it was, for it wasn't a hand. It was a hook. She turned her head to yell for Larry, but when she looked back, the figure was gone. Had it been there? Was she seeing things? Did her fear of the darkness play with her mind? Larry appeared at the car door, got inside, and started the car. She could barely contain herself. "Larry, that crazy man was standing there. I saw him. He had a hook for a hand. I saw it." "Jenny, stop. I'm sorry the tire took a bit, but there's no need to get dramatic. There's nothing there. Here, I'll show you." Larry turned on the headlights, and in front of them there was nothing but the view of the city. See, Jenny, there's no one there. It was probably one of those bushes over there, or maybe even a deer. Things always look different in the dark. But Larry, I saw a man there. He had a hook. Maybe it was a guy looking for bottles in the trash cans to cash in. There's nothing there, Jenny. Okay, Larry, let's just get away from this place. The car slowly pulled back, turned away, and began to head towards the dark, winding road that would take them back to town. Larry and Jenny sat in silence the entire trip down through the hills, until Larry switched the radio on. Within seconds, another bulletin came over the airwaves.
Once again, we interrupt your regularly scheduled broadcast. This is the emergency warning system. At this hour, a massive manhunt continues for the escaped murderer from Morning View Sanitarium. We repeat, he is still on the loose. This man is to be considered extremely dangerous, and no attempt should be made to apprehend him. Please notify your local law enforcement for further assistance if spotted. We now return you to the regular programming.
Jenny felt her blood run cold, and for the first time, Larry felt a wave of cold fear run through him. They continued in silence as they made their way through town, and didn't speak until they pulled up in front of Jenny's house. Can you come in and sit with me a while, Larry? I'd rather not be alone right now. Sure, Jenny. Of course. They walked the short path to the house under a black clouded sky that muted the twinkling stars and made the shadows grow darker until they switched on the porch light, which bathed the front of the house in a warm yellow glow. The light reached as far as the driveway, illuminating Jenny's side of the car and revealing that latched onto the back door handle was a large metal hook.